stencil. So we will show you how to make a professional stencil with a professional stencil making machine. So first of all, we will choose a flower from my book, and we want it as a stencil, just as a single paper stencil. And because this will be a very basic for later on to make bigger stencils or bigger stuff, and for more complex designs. Because sure, some flowers you maybe can stencil by hand, obviously, as they all painted by hand, but it will take you a lot of time, and the more complex the motifs are, the more difficult is it to make a stencil by hand. And especially sometimes you don't know the exact size of a pattern or a stencil or motif, and you have to have your client here to see the different size. And when you have the different size, then you can directly just throw out a stencil, put it on him and start tattooing. While when you would need to make it by hand, to make a motif like this by hand, this will take you like 1.5 to 2 hours to make a stencil in a proper size by hand. So you cannot have an appointment with your client, check the size, let him sit down for a couple of hours while you paint. Also, it's not the best to go into a tattoo session after you had a long stencil making sessions. So that's why devices like this come in very handy. There are a lot of varieties of stencil maker. We will show you already the cheap one. So this is the good one, a professional, reliable stencil maker. And for this, I will get now my assistant.
Okay, so now that we found ourselves our design that we hope to get printed out, take a look on a preview. I see here that the flower is fully on the page. Step 1, put on the printer, very important. Step 2, get yourself to us already well-known sheet of stencil paper. And this time for this kind of stencil machine, you have to once remove the sheet of paper that is not connected, it's just put in between the 2 layers, but also the hard, it's either yellow or white, like a hard paper on the back side. Just remove, this is just a trash from now on. Depending on the program you have on the computer, you need to usually play a little bit with the settings, like the density of the print. We usually with outline, with like a lot of lines, I would go to 3 or 4.
Wait. Okay, density.
Density I will go 3 or 4, because when you put too much, the printer gets also again like overheated, or it makes issues. The paper then gets stuck inside easily. So.
But this you just try out a few times.
This you have, and this also I cannot say that it works with all programs and all printers the same. This is a thing that I would say you just have to go
one time,
like just try it out. And you see, if you put it too low, then the stencil that comes out is not solid enough. You cannot really see it. If you put too much, the paper might get stuck or chewed in the machine. So once we have this prepared, we put in the stencil with the white side up. We try to make it as straight as we can get in it, so that it doesn't go in the machine like this and then it gets all chewed up, because that can break the machine, or it can also make the stencil on the paper really, I don't know, like chewed up. Suffice. Then we just press print in the machine. Then we see here the data starts blinking, so the machine starts getting info. And now you're already seeing. And here, okay, in the end, you have to pull a little bit, but that's normal. Just don't go too wild with the power. And now we can see, I put the density on 3, I think. And you can see that on the thicker lines, it's okay. But on the outside, on these lines that are like really tiny, sometimes they don't get printed perfectly. And that's the thing that you have to play around with and get your own experience to see if, depending on the design, if you need to put 3, 4 or 5 as the density of the print. Also, I repeat, depends on your programs in the computer, on your kind of stencil printer and such. But I would say this is pretty much usable. We can slap that baby on someone and get that tattooed, as long as someone has the moral to make all these lines.
So thank you to my assistant for making this print happen. And as you see, there are different variations of thermal printer. This was the very cheap model we showed you before, and it works the same. You just have to experiment a little bit more. So make sure you get a thermal copy machine. Just get a lot of papers in the beginning, because it probably takes you some time to figure it out. The last time we used it is very long ago. We took a lot of paper to figure out how this one works. So we didn't want to go through the process yet again, because this is our model and it's absolutely fine to show you what we want to do. So that means whatever model you buy, I think they all pretty much do the same thing and they all work pretty much the same. You just have to play a little bit around with the density and the intensity to see, get a feeling for your own printer and how it works. And very complex designs like this that are very, very thin lines, so you cannot expect to have the very best out of everything. But I think this is a very, very good stencil. We could directly work with it, and you see, it took us like no time at all. And when you want to go very deep into how we make something like this very big, how we put very big stencils on the body, freehand, etc., we will make a special extra workshop just for this, because this is a very deep topic where we just scratch the surface, and everything what goes over DIN A4 size, it will be a little bit a different technique, because there are not really printers who can make you really big prints, so you have to get a little bit experimental. But that's in another workshop. Stencil. So I will show you a couple of used stencil from the shop which was ended up on human bodies. So we have first this piece, and you see, I show you the back side here, you see good, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a half piece, and very easy conceptual roadmap. There's like some, I even see the numbers still from the pattern, so you can puzzle it easy together. I think this one was made for a sleeve, it did not get used. I think I used a different size, but you see easy 1, 2, 3 pieces, and you see it fits on an end-tired sleeve, easy peasy. It would be a nice fade for an end-tired front piece. Now we come to some bigger stuff. And as they are already used, so they are not in the best conditions anymore. But you see, this is a real big piece. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 pieces. I think that was for a torso. And you can imagine not only building this, but also to wrap this on a body. I think that we made with 2 or 3 people even, because this is something you can't make alone, and also you don't want to fuck up and make the stencil again, because this is quite a lot of work, and it's a half a pack of stencil paper. So you don't want to make this too often. And yeah, there are some big flowers, as you see. What's this? And you see like crazy roadmap here. Sometimes you have to puzzle and make tricky things to have this happen. But also this was from a front piece. Also here another big pattern. And you see the map from this. Sometimes they don't have to be always in the same line. Just see how is the size of the pattern you need, and just map it up as you need it, because you don't want to use more sheets than possible, because when the sheets get bigger, the bigger the stencil, the more difficult it is to bring it on the body. And this is already a pretty big size to bring on the body. 4, 6 sheets. That's like, look on my body, this is like, there you see the real size of this. This is like really big stuff. So it's really tricky. And this is also a very nice example. This is a really big thing. 8, 9 pieces. There was even one more, 10 pieces. And this is an example. You see a pattern like this. It's a round pattern, so it's very difficult to split this in parts and later print it separately on the body. So you really have to do it in one stencil. And yeah, I like to show the size because the sizes are really big. So some script pattern, why not? See some simple 4x4, still big enough to fill a back or a front piece. A simple 4-piece. And you see always very nice in the back how it's glued together. Turn around, we cut it out, so it's really like pretty seamless here. And yeah, that's like a couple of our big stencil we kept. So when it comes to stencil, you have to directly say there's 2 ways to make a stencil, by hand and with machines. We are talking now from scaled stencils you don't do by hand anymore, point. I was there in my past. I made patterns like this by hand. Not only it is a lot of time, but also think about every time you make the lines will be not 100%. So you will tattoo this pattern, it will not be 100%, but you won't have the best chances possible. So that means the more perfect the stencil is, the better your tattoo will be. So that means when you already hand stencil something big like this, and you already like have 10% incorrect stuff, and then from the tattooing you will add another 15% of incorrect lines. It can be like a lot of tolerance, which we don't want. So you really just want the best stencil possible. So for this, you need to have a stencil maker. So when it comes to stencil maker, there are a lot of models out there. I have 2 things to show you. This is a very cheap model and this is a very expensive model. And the cheap model does the job. When you know it and you understand it, you have to tricks a little bit around, because as example, this model cannot print big parts of this, big parts of color. So that means a stencil like this, you would need it to have all the outlines. And sometimes, like this is a good example, I think, because this is a very I think it's a very simple design to bring on the body when you have a nice stencil. But when you have this as example outlined by hand and stencils on the body, this will a nightmare and you probably will make mistakes, you know. So this is, I think, a very good example from a really crazy looking design who can be really easy made on the body in big scale, but could be almost impossible with the wrong stencil. And this cheap stencil machine cannot make this stencil. So it's always depends on what you do. When you need you work on big flowers, as example, who just lines, or big motifs who are just lines. A cheap machine like this works 100% fine and you can do 100% the stencils. But when it comes to patterns or more complex stuff where it's nice sometimes to have big fields of black because it makes your life a lot easier, then I have to recommend to get a different machine. There's this directly printers, there's some other bigger machines who also can transfer stuff like this. There are some options, but you probably have to spend a little bit more money than 90 bucks or whatever a cheap machine costs like.
Yeah, I'm more in the chaos. Would be good to have like
write numbers on a big stencil. Yeah, but when I do big stencil, I like, we use the Coral Draw technique. We have like, yeah, big stencil, I would say it's like 6 pages. So maybe you have like 2 pages on the side and then 3 down. So I try to print the first and then the second, and then I put them together. So I know, okay, this both I glue together, then the next 2 I glue together, and then the next 2, and then I put these 3 pieces together. Yeah, big stencil is always like can be a big mess. Yeah, also like then you put it on the body and then you fucked up the stencil, and then you have to do it all again. Like this sucks, you know. When I put big stencils, then I first like put the dry clean stencil on the body, and I see, you know, where the body bends too much, and I get a feeling which areas are like more difficult to do, or if I think it at the end will work, because this is, I think, like a test try on the dry body. And then when you know where you place it and if it works, then you just put the stencil stuff or the tool on it, and then you try it. The important stuff is to tell your customer freeze. And then,
yes, then I forget to mention, you really have to tell them how deadly serious this is to not move at all.
Yeah, this is important stuff, because it's normal for people that they want to see what is happening. So you really have to tell them that they don't move, and just do something when you tell them. Or I just, when I have to like maybe move the arm on the side, then I tell them, okay, I move your arm a little bit. Yeah, and yeah, sometimes maybe when you have like really big stencils, sometimes can be good that you have another person to help you, but I think that don't happen so much. Yeah, I think to put a big stencil, it's like a mix of skills and luck. So you never know, you know. It's also maybe you have a good or a bad day, or also depends on, you know, on some people it's easy to put a stencil because they don't have so much like bending, and so this is why every person is different. So for me, this is why I try to put the dry paper on the body to see if it's working or not. But it's also, I think a lot of luck.
What do you think when a stencil goes over 6 sheets? Is there enough luck, or it's always freehand painting involved somewhere to fix them?
Yeah, it's always some freehand stuff involved. For me, when I do big stencils, the important part of the stencil is the middle part, or the part where you have the smaller areas, because they should be like clean, because to paint this afterwards it's not so easy and takes a lot of time. But at the end of the stencil, where you have like bigger pieces, this is the areas, they are not so super important. Also when it's not super straight or stuff, this is something you really can easily repaint later.
You probably always have to have some compromises.
Yeah, you have to have some compromises, because the body is not straight. If you have a straight pattern and you put it on a body, it will never be like super straight. Maybe you have to look after the super clean lines. Maybe they will be in the pattern. This is maybe important that they look like straight, and then you have other parts where you don't see so much the mistakes inside. But you never will have like a super straight pattern on a body, or you have to paint it all by hand. But
or you have to have a lot of luck.
You have to have a lot of luck, or you have to have a lot of skills, because there are some people, they just paint patterns on the body, but this is another thing, you know.
And it also takes a lot of time.
It takes a lot of time.
You never know how long can a customer stand.
Yeah, this is also special thing. Really.
Yeah.
The hardest part of, or when people pass out, is often when you put a stencil or you paint them and they have to stand for like 5 or 10 minutes straight. This is the thing a lot of people pass out, or like they feel not good and have and tell, I have to sit or stuff. Yeah. So don't take too long.